Hey, what's going on everyone? It's Cadence here, and I know I haven't made a video in a long while, and that's because I kind of took a break from 3.15. I was a very casual gamer in 3.15, not making any mirror tier items or anything. I think I ended the league with only like a mirror or so in net value. So, yeah, compared to my usual Path of Exile gaming, I was a super casual in 3.15. So, I'm kind of really excited for 3.16, and this is going to be my breakdown of 3.16's patch notes, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff. And more importantly, I didn't want to make this video like on the day patch notes came out because I didn't want to be like all the other content creators who just look at the notes and just give some cursory information about what they think, temporarily or all that stuff. I wanted to really make sure I had talked with people who knew what they were doing, had a chance to reflect on both 3.15 League and its comparison to 3.13 and 3.14 and a bunch of other stuff as well, and looking at various items. And I also wanted to see the full passive tree because we knew that that was going to get kind of reworked by then. So anyway, this is going to be my series of videos on kind of a 3.16 League. This first video, I think I'm going to dedicate it to general changes and kind of like a general overview. I want to make it quick and dirty. So without further ado, let's kind of get started, shall we? Starting with the Scourge League mechanic itself. I am not too much to comment on this other than the fact that I'm happy to see a timer that isn't gated based on speed, like in theory, right? It's not gated based on speed because the Blood Crucible filling mechanic is very much, take as long as you want to fill it. It's really, really cool. And based on what we know, the Scourge drops are going to be really poggers because we're able to link and socket vol items now without having to do the absolutely cursed crafting bench 3000 vol orb garbage. So really hyped for that. And other than that, it's not too big of a deal. Talking about the new skill gems, nothing really important here except for the links. Actually, everybody's been talking about like tornadoes, like wow, tornadoes finally in the game. I think it's gonna be super clunky and hard to use, so don't get your hopes up for that. But all the links are quite good. All the links are quite good. I think realistically in party play, because aura bots were nerfed so much, that having these links is really nice, and it's kind of a counterbalance. We'll have to see how much realistic power these links give. Based on what I see, it's not much. I think the coolest one is the intuitive link with their hits trigger supported spells. There's a lot of potential for minion builds around this specific link. Anyway, the rest of this stuff is not particularly important in any way. Okay, cool. So expeditions going core, thank God. That's like, I had so much fun doing expeditions in this league. So bless up that expeditions are going core. Prandis is gone. Get that garbage out of here. It was never good in the first place. So yeah, anyway, so there's a bunch of quality of life stuff. I'm not going to go over it, all of that stuff. Now let's kind of go on to the end game changes. So blight maps, super blight maps, super timeless emblems, super breach stones, and 10 more waves of simulacrum, so a total of 30 waves. These is massive because right now endgame kind of reaches a lull once you reach that kind of level. So having an additional challenge where you have to build to accommodate for this sort of stuff creates a lot of inherent build diversity, because the build that is ideal for farming simulacrums now, because you're specializing so hard into this content, maybe not the best build for doing like Uber domains, or definitely not for Uber timeless. And based on what we know about the Uber timeless, which is mods kind of stack every time the monster respawns, I'm kind of happy to see like proper scaling so Headhunter isn't crazy abused. And so that's really all I have to say about the Uber in-game content. I'm not a mapper myself, I'm a crafter, so it's kind of difficult for me to judge based on what I've been seeing, based on the friends that I talk to that are really like hardcore mappers. This is super poggers. And yeah, so creating a build around this, especially with Aura Stacker being completely fucked in the ass, it's gonna be really interesting. I'm happy to see that mappers are going to have to, you know, resort to something other than aura stacking. Yeah. Okay, cool. Moving down. Like I said, I'm not going to go over that list of map changes. I don't know anything about it. Realistically, I have no idea. I never complete the atlas anyway. So all I know is this looks like it's a lot faster, and that sounds really, really good to me. None of this is particularly important. Delve is another thing that's not particularly important to me. If you're a delver, you should go you should go look at some videos from like proper delvers. The Casey's a pretty good delver. Maybe some others as well. Lab changes is also just some quality of life stuff. Now going over some stuff in general, I don't want to like I know some YouTuber has like a 2-hour long video going over all this stuff, and I'm not going to do that. If you want like a super in-depth on, you know, just this guy reading line by line, go watch that. But the TLDR for this section is that flasks have tiers, and ailment mitigation is a lot easier to get this league, because last league it was hell. 3.16 was very, very brutal on that. There's some like just some small stuff. There's some like flask buffs. Generally speaking, these are huge flask buffs. You don't need to worry about it too much. If you're mapping, you just need to know that like flasks are generally buffed. Now, this is the important section. It's crazy. So first of all, spell dodge is gone. It's gone. Completely gone. And there's so much stuff that's changed. Like, there's no longer double evasion stacking. In the past, the reason why Raider was functionally unkillable was because you would stack max dodge with max evasion, and you would get somewhere between 95 to 96% like chance to just never get hit, right? And when you did get hit, if you ran like Divine Flesh with a little bit of fizz mitigation or something like that, you were functionally unkillable. In 3.15 League, I ran a TR Raider with Divine Flesh, and I had somewhere between like 200 300k EHP with, you know, 10 to 15 chaos budget, other than the Divine Flesh. So it was kind of loony, and I'm kind of happy to see them like change that. So Raider is going to finally feel a lot worse, because Raider was definitely by far the most loaded defensive and offensive ascendancy, TBH. So happy to see that. So evasion and defense changes. There's a lot of specifics, and I'm not going to go into the specifics because, you know, every little case is kind of different. Especially with the block changes and champion being 80% block now. So stuff like that. Anyway, moving on. Ghost Dance as a keystone. There's a bunch of new keystones. Ghost Dance as a keystone. There's a bunch of stuff that are changed. I'll kind of go over that individually in like separate videos, but just know, on average, defenses are buffed. I think it's a general buff. All right, it's a buff for, at the very least, it's a buff for the lower end of defenses. So I think it's not necessarily a buff for the upper end. I think it's a great nerf, especially when looking at evasion and dodge for the upper end, because you can't reach that kind of level anymore. But, you know, some people also prefer this type of new defense, where just like when you get hit, you just straight up mitigate a percentage of that damage. Blind nerfs, which is kind of big. Fortify changes. Fortify is going to be a lot weaker now for spellcasters, and I think this is a really good change, because in the past people would just run like shield charge Fortify or some garbage and just get a loony amount of defensive stats for no reason, especially since a lot of spellcasters run scepters, which is a melee weapon, and you can just get that for free. Now on to what I wanted to touch on the most, which is aura and reservation changes. The TLDR here is that aura stackers are functionally dead. I'm not entirely sure. I've done a lot of math looking at my aura stacker and previous aura stackers, and I'm like 99% sure it's impossible to reach the same level of aura stacker as it was before. You can still reach a semi-decent level, but it's no longer an exponentially, or it wasn't really exponentially before either. It's no longer a linear scaling curve. It's logarithmically capped for the most part. So no matter what you do, there's a cap. This is super good for the Timmy gamers and all these super casuals. So if you're a casual, if you're like playing to chill, you know, play a couple hours a week, couple hours a day or something like that, you know, this is really great news for you. These changes are probably the best changes you will ever see for casuals. Actually, they are the just best changes you'll ever see for casuals. Being able to slot in more auras easier, that's crazy. That's crazy. People who play Spellslinger on a lower budget. So this is just great for the average player base. It is absolutely gruesome for aura stackers. And yeah, so it's a bit brutal. Moving on to elemental damage over time. Because of the elemental equilibrium changes, I actually think it's barely equal. All of these changes are super good for your Timmy casuals. Like I said, a couple hours a day or less than that, these changes are amazing for them. The game is going to feel so much more crisp because they never abused elemental equilibrium and stuff like that in the past, like to stack all these debuffs and buffs. So huge changes for the general kind of gaming populace for the game. We'll talk about the passive trees in a little bit and probably in a separate video. But yeah, so these are the main changes that are going to be happening this league. Moving down to the ascendancies. Basically, Trickster sucks. Ghost Shroud was the reason why Trickster was like a crazy strong ascendancy. And I guess if you take Trickster now for the uber survivability of both Ghost Shroud and that new Shroud, you know, it just feels, you know, I just don't know. I wouldn't. If you're playing softcore, I feel like Trickster has very little to offer that another ascendancy does not do better, right? If you're playing, you know, ED Contagion Trickster, I mean, like that, I don't know, I would just play a Cultist at that point, right? Or if you're playing like Poison, go Assassin, right? Go, even a Cultist can go Poison kind of, or Pathfinder. So it just feels like Trickster doesn't have an identity really anymore. Gladiator is really insane, by the way. Violent Retaliations ignore enemy monster physical damage if you've blocked in the last 20 seconds, and attack damage is lucky if you've blocked in the last 20 seconds. It's crazy. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this. This is crazy. It means you can't stack minus fizz or nearby enemies take extra. Oh, well, you can. Nearby enemies take extra fizz still counts. So I don't know. This is crazy. This is a crazy line. But also, I just think Gladiator is going to be uber tanky next league and whatnot. The rest of these aren't too big of a deal. Really, it's just Raider and Trickster. And, well, Raider's dead, boys. Well, at least compared to how it was, it's basically dead. 15% attack and spell dodge to 40% spell suppresses. Good God. It's not even close. Avatar of the Veil no longer has reduced accuracy. Avatar of the Chase no longer grants more evade. And that's crazy because in the past, the reason Avatar of the Chase was so insane is this math was done after after blind. So if you blinded an enemy for 50%, then you had another 35%. You naturally had 85% evade. It's crazy. None of these matter too much. Moving on to the Awaken support changes. Thank fuck. I'm praising GGG's good graces because there was really no reason in the past to run half of these Awaken support gems. Genuinely. Unless you were like super min-maxing. But now, every single Awaken support gem that drops, you look at it and you go, wow, this is poggers. Right? We no longer have 2C Awaken support gems on trade. This is really good. More chase items in general. I'm not going to go over this stuff. This is the stuff that people usually go over with Spectral Shields throw stuff and melee range. Forbidden Right Totems is dead. Thank God. That shit was broken. 10C budget can kill like every boss in the game. None of this is going to matter too much. Okay, none of this is going to matter too much. All of this stuff is just... you'll feel it as you play, and this is not something you have to like truly pay attention to. These breach changes, Voice of the Storm is the really big one, but the other ones are cool too. The critical gem tag is something we just saw recently in the passive tree notable stuff, or the mastery stuff, and I'll get into that in another video, but it's good. I'm happy to see more tags. More tags. I always advocate for more tags, and I think more things should have more tags, because you can create like almost a Venn diagram, like a many Venn diagram of like all the skills, and then you know players can kind of choose and pick where they want to plot themselves with this skill on that giant ass Venn diagram. So I've always been a big fan of having more tags, and happy to see a new tag, and hopefully they add more. At Ziri, I don't do much, but I just know that Pledge of Hands is no longer going to be retarded expensive for a lot of players. A lot of Pledge of Hands is a really potent item, and then the Apex of Sacrifice and is going to drop the axe, which kind of sucks. Big ass. I don't know why they did that, but it's not a big deal. Rest of this stuff is, like I said, stuff that you don't really need to focus on for the league. The Vol Immortal call changes is for standard, actually. And anyway, a lot of quality of life stuff. Forbidden Shaco is just becoming Forbidden Shaco. There's no more replica, and really, I'm really happy to see this change. It's gonna make the item. It's sad because it makes heisting less profitable, but it's poggers still, because it means that the Sacred Blossom right now is literally just used as a challenge, right? Like, nobody buys a Sacred Blossom to say, oh, I'm gonna go kill Oshabi, because there's no reason to. Oshabi's garbage. Yeah, bro, I'm here to get my infused engineer orbs. Yeah, completely worthless. So, having a real drop from Oshabi, and I'm hoping that they keep adding these sort of chase items to Oshabi, because first of all, this makes Shaco more accessible, right? This makes that there's a whole cyclic process to this, because more map blasters, more harvest blasters, more Sacred Blossoms, more Shacos on the market, right? Like, generally in League, you don't see many replica Shacos anyway. So maybe this, I'm not sure what the drop rate is, but it's the idea, at the very least, the idea is that it will drop pretty consistently from Oshabi, and that's where we're gonna get that. The rest of this stuff is not a big deal. Some quality of life changes, damage on quivers. I mean, quivers should be for bows anyway. I mean, whatever. Rest of this stuff is like just quality of life stuff that you will like kind of experience as you play, but nothing to pay attention to, and that's it. Scrolling down to Syndicate Operatives, bye-bye. Esso's shotgunning is gone, along with the other aura stacking nerfs. Super high-end Syndicate Operatives. It looks like it will be a little rough to do that this league, which is, once again, super poggers, because more build diversity, right? Last league, there were so many Syndicate Operatives going around. Anyway, the rest of this stuff isn't too big of a deal. I think that's basically it. I wanted to make a relatively concise video, 18 minutes. That's better than 2 hours. And in the next video, I'll kind of go into the mastery system and why, and kind of what notable masteries there are to kind of look at. See you soon.